Welcome to the channel, guys. My name is Jess. So Bitcoin has finally done it. We finally pushed above the 50 and 200 EMA on the daily time frame after breaking out of the 2025 downtrend. The price has now rallied massively all the way up to $94,000, and we are currently retesting a massive level of macro resistance. We're going to dive into the video today to talk about the high time frame targets for Bitcoin now that we've finally seen the breakout, and the possibility of a short time frame pullback at resistance. Before we dive in, make sure you guys smash that like button and subscribe to the channel to get regular Bitcoin analysis every Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday. And join my free Telegram for more regular Bitcoin updates. If you're a trader and you're interested in joining my VIP trading channel, be sure to message me down below on Telegram. VIP gives you exclusive access to my personal trading setups with exact entry points, targets, and stop losses. Alright guys, so jumping into the charts, let's talk about the recent rally from Bitcoin. Honestly, there's not too much to say. You guys can see it pretty clearly here on the charts. But essentially, over the last week or so of price action, we've had some very important developments on the charts. So first of all, we broke above our 2025 downtrend, this large black trend line that spans across from the middle of January at $110,000 and all the way down to our current range low at $74.5 thousand. Now, after breaking above the 2025 downtrend, Bitcoin did not catch a break straight away. We had the next level of resistance right above it at the 50 and 200 EMA, these two moving average dynamic resistances. And we can see here we actually struggled against that level of resistance for quite some time. I think it was over a week that we saw sideways consolidation until very recently, just yesterday or the day before, that Bitcoin finally gathered the strength to push above both those levels of resistance. And we have since seen a massive rally pushing above the next level and first change of character level here on the high time frame charts at $88.7 thousand or $89,000, and then up into the next level of resistance here, our prior weekly range at 91 to 92K. Zooming into the shorter time frames, we can see here that the rally was absolutely unstoppable, even moving into 88.7K resistance, the massive sort of channel of consolidation we've been in for a week and a half, and with the massive amount of bearish divergence seen here across the charts with high highs and incredibly intense lower highs here. This selling pressure was rapidly absorbed. We could not lose this momentum uptrend developed on the short time frame and exploded above that level of resistance. So if we go ahead and take a look at market data really quickly, we can see short liquidations were through the roof. $500 million in short liquidations in the last 24 hours. 24-hour volume is up by 30%, open interest as well 13%, and 24-hour liquidations 120%. So a really aggressive move from the market here. So now it's time to talk about the high time frame effects of this recent breakout. So we already know it was a huge rally. We've already seen a massive climb for Bitcoin, but is that going to go any higher, and what are the signs pointing towards that direction? And then of course on the short time frame, as we approach resistance, are we going to see a short time frame correction? Let's get into it. So starting off our analysis on the daily time frame, let's first talk about the significance of the 50 and 200 EMA resistance here on the daily chart. So I did touch on this in my last video and talked about the significance prior to the breakout, but I'd just like to reiterate the point after we've actually broken out. So we can see here, of course, and I've already explained it, that the 50 and 200 EMA here on the daily chart was a massive level of resistance, and we can see it on the price action the way we consistently saw those rejections and consolidation against that level. But also if we take a look at the historical price action, generally when we see the convergence of these two levels, the 50 EMA and the 200 EMA here on the daily time frame, the push above both those levels as they converge has historically signaled for what ends up becoming quite an aggressive and high time frame rally, right? So leading to extensive breakouts as opposed to, you know, a small move upwards and then a dip back down. So let's go take a look at some examples. The first and most clear one that we have is all the way back here in September 2024 when we were in a massive channel of horizontal consolidation. We had a bull flag structure over here, right? Consistent lower highs in the price action and lower lows as well. And then right as things were starting to look really bearish, we had massive liquidation events over here. We saw a convergence of these two moving averages, and it was the flip of both of these levels to support that established enough strength for Bitcoin to push above our really high time frame consolidation over here. This is 8 months worth of consolidation nearly, and rally all the way up to $106,000. So that rally was a good long while as well, a high time frame rally. Moving back just a little bit further, we have the next example right over here, right? In the midst of our accumulation phase, our early stages of accumulation, we had a flip of the 250 EMA here at $26,000 to $28,000. And that rally then took us all the way up to retest $90,000, right? Moving into that bull flag structure later on in February or March. So we can see here just two instances in the recent history of Bitcoin where the flip of the 15,200 EMA as they converge has marked really significant sort of rallies, or the beginning of really significant rallies. And so taking a look at the price action right now, what that essentially tells us is that this rally is very likely to continue, just looking at the 15,200 EMA as a base level of analysis. Now, what's going to validate the continuation of Bitcoin upwards on this daily time frame? So our key bullish validation is going to be the most recently flipped level of resistance. So $88,700 or $89,000. This is the key level that we're watching out for on the daily time frame to signal that Bitcoin is remaining bullish, right? And this is because as we approach the next sort of historical range for Bitcoin, right, this one over here at 91 to 92,000 and ending at $100,000, this historical range, this was the sell side liquidity for that range, right? So pushing above that and retaining above that, we have a higher probability of pushing back up into the next, I guess, horizontal range from $91,000 to $99,000, right? That's sort of our key bullish validation. If we reject off that and continue to fall back below $88,700, we've essentially also flipped back below the first change of character, the first prior high in our 2025 downtrend. So we failing to establish a higher high on the charts, right? So failing to flip these charts to being bullish. So a key bullish validation is $88,700. If we retain above that on the high time frame, generally the charts are going to continue to look quite bullish. Now zooming out into the weekly time frame, we can see further analysis and validation for the fact this rally is resulting in what will be a high time frame breakout as well. So over here on the weekly chart, for the last couple of weeks, we have been looking for a couple key things. First of all, if we take a look at the RSI, we were first looking for a breakout of this RSI downtrend, right? The same sort of momentum downtrend that had taken us through from $99,000 over here and all the way down to $74,000. It was one of the primary reasons Bitcoin was struggling to flip the charts. It's because momentum was still bearish, right? So we've finally broken above the 2025 downtrend here on the RSI, but also what we've seen is a push above the prior high on the oscillator as well at 49.97. That was one of the key things keeping us within our prior weekly range. And now that we've finally seen a breakout on both the RSI and the price action, the weekly charts are looking really bullish. But this does take us into the conversation now of our high time frame targets, because if we take a look right now at where Bitcoin is currently retesting on the weekly time frame, we're actually retesting a really crucial level of resistance. So let's draw in our prior weekly range. So here on the weekly chart, we can see essentially what's happened with Bitcoin across the last 4-ish months is we had this prior weekly range starting at $93,400, the red line, or $93,600, and ending here at $104,300. We had multiple retests of the base of our weekly range here as support, and it wasn't until the loss of that support here that triggered the massive aggressive bearish move all the way down to 74,000, where we retested the Gaussian channel and the 50 EMA on the weekly time frame. Now, bouncing at that level of support and finally rallying and breaking above the 2025 downtrend, we're going back to retest that base of the weekly range once again. We can see the most recent sort of wick upwards for Bitcoin up to 94,000 went on to retest that weekly range base. So it could potentially serve as a rejection point on the short time frame, but as long as we hold that key validation on the charts, right, that $88,700 or $89,000 as support, at some point, hopefully we can see that bounce, the establishment of higher highs on the high time frame charts and a push above resistance, right? And so in terms of the first bullish target, I guess it really is to re-establish this weekly range as the current range for Bitcoin, right? So that means in the next 5 days, hopefully, or most ideally, we would see a close back above $93.6 thousand. That would then suggest that Bitcoin should move back up to re-travel within this prior weekly range and a movement back up to $104,000. That would be sort of the next high time frame target in closing above 93.6 in the next 5 days. On the smaller time frames though, our next key bullish target we can see on the daily chart. So if we take a look at the Smart Money Concepts indicator and our 2025 downtrend, that'll essentially mark out the next high time frame targets that we have in store for Bitcoin. So movement into this liquidity zone at $95,000 should take us up to retest $99,000. The prior sort of weekly range on the smaller time frame charts. And then generally, as we've seen in the past, a establishment of 99.5 thousand or 100K as support generally facilitates a rally up to a new all-time high. Over here, we rallied after establishing support there all the way up to $106,000 with the close at 106? Yeah, $108,000 with the close at 106. And then over here, we had a rally all the way up to $110,000 with the close once again at $106,000, right? So key level of resistance on the way up as well. So this daily time frame does really clearly map out the key validations and key levels that we need to see moving on the way upwards, right? So while we hold 88.7K as a base of support and we sustain that as a higher high on the price action and we keep these charts being bullish, the next target here is a close on the weekly time frame above 93.6, this red line or the base of our weekly range, and then a movement into $99,000, where pushing above 99,000 and actually establishing it, flipping that level as support, should then facilitate a move up to 106 and then potentially a new all-time high above $110,000, right? Otherwise, if we lose this level of support and Bitcoin fails to establish a higher high here on the price action, we could potentially see a further rejection back down to retest those prior levels at the weekly range. So our 50 EMA and 200 EMA as support, right? And then below that 83,000 and so on and so forth. Zooming into the shorter time frame charts, let's talk about the possibility here of seeing a very short time frame correction. So right off the bat, looking at the hourly chart here, things are honestly looking quite strong, even moving into 93.6K resistance over here. We can see that we're actually approaching it with a lot of strength. The momentum uptrend that took Bitcoin to break above 88.7K resistance as well is still very much alive and kicking. We're well above the uptrend with, consistent sort of retests and bounces on that trend line. So momentum is still very much bullish as we approach this level of resistance, but we are also approaching, that sort of oversold territory on the RSI as well, right? Pushing above that 80 on the oscillator, we tend to see, a high potential for a little bit of a pullback. It's just how long will it take for, Bitcoin to actually experience the effects of that pullback? So first of all, I guess the largest trigger and warning sign that we have here on the charts that Bitcoin's actually going to see a correction here is then the loss of our momentum uptrend. If momentum flips bearish, it's likely we'll see a little bit of a correction for Bitcoin, and that correction might just take us to retest the uptrend here on the actual price action itself, right? So that wouldn't really be a bearish correction. It's just a small time frame, show of profit taking after the extensive rallying that Bitcoin's done, and then, most likely as we approach this level of support as well, that will lead to a bounce. If we zoom in just a little bit further into the 15-minute chart here, we can see the start of bearish divergence, right? We've got these consistent lower highs here on the RSI. So momentum, buying or bullish momentum is dropping slightly. But again, with the uptrend here on the RSI, we can see that that's really being absorbed. Any selling pressure is being absorbed by the price action, and the buyers are really stepping in to push the price higher. So I guess the overall conclusion from this is the focus right now for Bitcoin is on the high time frame charts, right? Even if we see a short time frame pullback, unless that pullback takes us below $88.7 thousand, that prior trigger point for this rally, and the 50 EMA and the 200 EMA, there's really nothing to be concerned about in terms of the short time frame price action. The focus is on the high time frame, our upcoming weekly candle close, and seeing the price action and its reaction to those next high time frame targets. Alrighty guys, that is a wrap on the analysis for today. Thank you for tuning in for another episode. If you enjoyed the video or you learned something, don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe to the channel to get regular Bitcoin analysis every Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday. And join my free Telegram for more regular Bitcoin updates. If you're interested in my VIP trading channel, don't forget to message me down below on Telegram. VIP gives you exclusive access to my personal trading setups with exact entry points, targets, and stop losses. Hope you guys have a great week, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!